What's up, guys? Rick here with my betting and one and done preview for this week's PGA Championship. That's right. If you've been saving your golfers in one and done, now might be the time to deploy them. And what I think is most interesting about this week is it's not the Masters. The Masters, we saw pretty short odds on everybody because it's a smaller field. It's played the same course every single time. But here, odds makers have really embraced the volatility of 156 golfers at a course that we have not seen in 9 years. And the odds are pretty juicy. You can get some good numbers out there, especially for some of the bigger names in the field. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about outrights. We'll see some buy low, sell high type of golfers. We'll talk about head-to-head matchups, and then we'll wrap with some one and done considerations for where you're at in your league. I don't know. There's probably other stuff to talk about. DFS preview's already out. Go to RickRunGood.com/bets for offers from your local book. I mean, there's probably a lot of stuff, but let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into this week's PGA Championship. All right, here it is, the tournament simulator. If you've never seen this before, this is on RickRunGood.com, as is everything that you see. That's my website, as you probably could have guessed. And I've simulated the results of this tournament 1,000 times. I've then compared them to the odds from, in this instance, DraftKings Sportsbook, and we're seeing where there is value. Obviously, you might have different numbers and different odds and just act accordingly. And the simulation results for me had Justin Thomas coming out on top. 9.3% of the time he won the tournament. Bryson won at 9.1% of the time. So those two very close to the top. Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy, and Jon Rahm rounded out the top 5. All of them, and the only ones, over 7% to win this golf tournament. You know, JT, for me, I actually find a lot of safety and security in Justin Thomas, not necessarily through his game, but through the style of golf that he plays. He's incredibly on brand. He is going to be phenomenal from tee to green. We know that. The question is going to be the putter. Is it going to be a 0 putting week and he wins the golf tournament, or is he going to lose 3, 4, 5 strokes and he finishes, you know, he can even finish T18 losing 5 strokes. He's the only guy in the world who can do it. So I actually find a lot of safety and security in betting on Justin Thomas. And, you know, he's 15 or 16 to 1, depending on where you're looking. It is not necessarily a number that I have invested in at the moment. I think there's kind of better situations, but I certainly could not blame you for going out and investing your hard-earned cash in Justin Thomas. The next guy, Bryson DeChambeau, I have more concerns than the simulator does. You know, I just think there are better places to deploy him. We'll talk about that in just a second. So I'll go down to Jordan Spieth, and I have to admit, Spieth is the guy that I've bet this week. So remember, 2 weeks ago, came on here and said, if you think Rory McIlroy is interesting for the PGA Championship, you have to bet him now, because if he goes down and he plays well at Quail Hollow at the Wells Fargo Championship, his number is going to be slashed. It made me look very smart, because that is exactly what happened. Rory McIlroy wins the Wells Fargo Championship, and his odds for the PGA Championship come down dramatically. So in most places, he's 11 to 1, 12 to 1, 10 maybe in some places. I'm sitting on a 23 to 1 ticket, and I know a lot of you are as well. So it has kind of taken the decision out of my hands for Rory McIlroy this week, which if you were asking me to make a bet this week, it probably would not be Rory. It would probably be Jordan Spieth. 14, 15, 16 to 1 in some places. If you get a really good number, maybe down at Circa, you can get him at 18 to 1, but you got to fly to the Strip if you want to do that. I'm a numbers guy. You guys know that. And really, you got to look at the numbers here. And Jordan Spieth grades out beautifully everywhere. Now, the last time I talked about a guy like this was Patrick Cantlay at the Players Championship, and he went out and missed the cut, and he's been broken ever since. So take it for what it's worth. But since the start of 2021, 5 months, Jordan Spieth has been the best player on the PGA Tour, and it has not been particularly close. If you look at strokes gained total, he's the only golfer gaining over 2 strokes per round. The gap between him at number 1 and the golfer at number 2 is the same gap between number 2 and number 10. He is lapping the field. He's doing it in a way that is sustainable. His approach play, where he has just been flushing it like he's Colin Morikawa. He has the short game magic. He is creative enough to win at a course like Kiawah, where maybe the wind starts kicking up. There's definitely going to be some interesting and some tricky situations. To me, all signs point to Jordan Spieth I don't know what you want to call it, playing well, contending, winning golf tournaments is hard. I only think he's going to do it about 7% of the time, but I love the way things are trending for Jordan Spieth. Anecdotally, further down the board, he actually didn't do very well in my simulations at all, but Daniel Berger to me sets up like a really great option. I think I talked about him a little bit on the DFS preview, but let me pull up his holy grail here. So here are Daniel Berger's recent results. And what I love about Berger is his path to the top of the leaderboard is much wider than a lot of other golfers and much wider than a lot of people expect it to be. He is so good in every category that he has this built-in base that is almost like a top 10 or a top 15 every single week. You look at when he has really ceiling weeks. Even last week at the AT&T Byron Nelson, he finished third. That's awesome. Only gained 2 strokes putting. When he won at Pebble Beach, he only gained 2.5 strokes putting. When he finished runner-up at the FedEx St. Jude, only 1.5. He has this ability to get hot with the putter, but he doesn't need to. So that means his path to success is incredibly wide. I love him in a lot of situations. 30-1 is the number that I'm seeing on him at the moment. I just think that he offers so much more than people give him credit for. And then a guy who did do well in my simulations, Patrick Reed, I have him winning this about 4.8% of the time. We know that Reed is a big game hunter. We know that he has the short game magic. If there was, anybody I would want to hit a difficult short-sided shot in a major championship, it would be Patrick Reed. It's just kind of the different path. There's a couple different paths, I think, to success this week. Be a bomber, hit so many greens that you don't have to worry about the short game. I'm not sure that's necessarily the correct path. The other path is Patrick Reed or a lot of these short game specialists leaning into that, having a good week, keeping it in play off the tee, and ending up winning this golf tournament. So those are the guys that I've really focused on. And then, the longer shot guys, pretty bullish on Hideki. Talk about that in just a second. The ball strikers like Corey Connors, Paul Casey are certainly interesting. Shane Lowry and Brian Harmon, they're kind of a different breed that I would be considering for this week. But what I love about the PGA Championship and golf in general is there's so many different ways to wager on it. We talk often about outrights and top 5s and top 10s, and we're going to talk about matchups in a second. But stock market DFS is getting bigger and bigger. The site that I use, JockMKT, it is growing like crazy. They just took on a bunch of new funding, and it's making these markets more liquid. So what you do is you bid on golfers on Wednesday night. You then can trade them, buy and sell them over the course of the tournament. So if a guy gets off to a bad start, maybe you buy shares of him on Thursday, or maybe your guy has a 36-hole lead and you think he can't hold on, you sell him on Friday evening. It just sets up really well for it. So what I wanted to do was put together some buy low and sell high candidates for this week and dive into four other guys more in depth at how they might look for this week. I am super bullish on Hideki Matsuyama this week because I think the sentiment around our Masters champion does not match the way that he can play this week. He is coming in at 35-1, and I was pretty worried about the Byron Nelson last week, his first start since the Masters, but the metrics that he put up were absolutely phenomenal. He was great off the tee. He was great on approach. He even gained strokes putting, which has become a bit of a trend for Hideki Matsuyama, who has gained strokes putting in 5 of his last 8 starts, something that would have been unheard of if you told me a year ago that Hideki has done something like that. And the only thing that went wrong at the Byron Nelson was around the green. He lost 4.5 strokes around the green. That was by far his worst performance in my database. It is very unlikely that happens again. So Hideki looking good heading into this week's PGA Championship. I'm targeting a IPO price of $7.50 for him to break even. He would have to finish 20th or better. And the best part about JockMKT is that you get paid on every single spot moving forward. So if you get him at $7.50 and he finishes 10th or 8th or 7th, you're going to make more money on each one of those shares. And then I'm going down to the penny stocks. Dean Burmeister, he enters this week at 400-1 to win the golf tournament, but I'm not going to ask him to do that. I'm basically only going to ask him to finish 52nd or better with an IPO target of $3. And again, there's probably no other place that you could get access to, is this guy going to finish 52nd or better? I'm not asking Dean Burmeister to do too much, but I think he is certainly capable of doing this. He's a South African whose home tour is the European Tour, and he is on a roll right now. In the last 3 weeks, he's won an event. He's finished fourth, and he finished sixth at the British Masters in his last starts just 1 week ago. So I'm looking at Burmeister, a guy who hits the ball a long way. He's never finished outside the top 10 in driving distance on the European Tour in any season since he's joined, and will be able to tap into some of that recent form to finish, top 50 would make you money if you can get them for $3 a share. A couple of big names that I'm concerned about or willing to sell high on. Let's start with Bryson DeChambeau. He is, having one of the most interesting stretches of golfs that we've seen. The big concern for me around Bryson is his inability to hit his approach shots right now. He's really been losing strokes, and a lot of them the last couple of weeks. That is one thing that you are going to have to be precise when you get to the Ocean course, and we've seen a lot of head scratching and knee slapping and shaking the head from Bryson DeChambeau in recent weeks, and I just think that when you get to a major championship, a lot of people want to fire up their studs. They want to go out and get the big boys and pay a steep price for each one of those shares, but I'm saving Bryson for maybe a time in the schedule where his form is a little bit better, or where it might play into his strengths a little bit more. Hint, hint, Torrey Pines. So that's where I'm going to save Bryson for. I'm targeting him for $8 a share. That would put a break-even point at 18th. And while I certainly think he can accomplish that, I just think that the sentiment of Bryson DeChambeau will take his Wednesday evening price over $8. So he is probably a guy that is not going to fit much into my portfolio. And then finally, Dustin Johnson enters the week as one of the favorites, 18-1, and I'm just a little bit worried about DJ. What I'm seeing from him recently is what I call whack-a-mole. 1 week it's the driver, the next week he's struggling with the putter, and the week after that he can't figure out his wedges. And what we've seen from other top players is that when they're playing whack-a-mole, it's tough to put it all together. There's just constantly something going wrong, and Dustin Johnson, to his credit over his career, has normally foreshadowed when he is going to have success. You see the trend lines coming. We are not seeing that right now, and I believe that we're going to have a pretty steep price for him when this IPO phase closes on Wednesday evening. I'm trying to get him around $11, which would actually give Dustin Johnson a top 10 to make me money, but I don't know if he'll go for that cheap. So I'm going to keep a close eye on DJ this week, and even $11 might be a little bit generous. If you have not signed up for Jock Market, highly encourage you to do so. You can use the code RICK50. That will give you a $50 deposit bonus. Things are going super well for the Jock Market team right now. They just raised $10 million in new capital. They're growing like a weed. I'm happy to just be a part of a very small part of it. And it's a fun and different and unique fantasy way to play, and golf is absolutely perfect for it. So check it out and win some money. I absolutely love it. 8:15 p.m. Eastern time on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel is the Jock Market Power Hour. We will be live for the final hour of IPO, so certainly join us for that. And let's go over to the head-to-head betting matchup tool. This is one of my just absolute favorite tools because it really just looks at the likelihood that one golfer beats another golfer in a 4-round matchup, and you can adjust the time frame to anything that you would like. So let's take a peek at some of these options here. Let me find a good one or two. This one I find very interesting. Emiliano Grillo and Charlie Hoffman both have been much better than I think people realize. Hoffman's been one of the better players of the year, but I have my date range open to 2020, so I wonder how that's going to impact things. Okay, so since the start of 2020, I do have Charlie Hoffman winning this 54% of the time, which would make him about minus 117. Now, he is the favorite in my model. He is not the favorite on DraftKings, but he's minus 110. Not sure that this is entirely a bet, although I wonder if you change this to the start of 2021, how much different this looks A little bit different. Okay, Charlie Hoffman moves to 58%, which would make him minus 138, and then that probably does become a bet because you're talking about 28 points there. So if you're comfortable using the 2021 version of this model, Charlie Hoffman would seemingly be a good bet. This other one here right below it, I'm looking at Brian Harman and Cameron Tringale. Harman's been a lot better. His short game is magic. Tringale's been more of an all-around good play for the last, year or so. Since the start of 2021, I have Brian Harman winning this pretty significantly, 59% of the time. I think he should be minus 145. He's minus 114. In fact, both he and Tringale are minus 114. So Brian Harman, pretty big favorite here. Again, 60%, not that that's a huge favorite. Now, if you go back longer term, that's when Tringale starts to make his move. That is when he becomes the very, very slight favorite, 51%. So if you're looking more recent, since the start of 2021, Harman would be your guy. If you're looking a little bit longer term, this is probably a no bet. You probably can't bet either one of these golfers. Oh, here's a great one. Bryson minus 118 over Jordan Spieth at minus 110. I mean, since the start of 2021, I imagine Spieth's going to beat everybody. Let's see. Oh, yeah. 59% over Bryson DeChambeau. He should be minus 149. So that's not even particularly close. If we go back further, this is going to shift to Bryson in a huge way. Yeah. So if we go back to the start of 2020, Bryson wins at 75% of the time. So you can see, the drop off for Spieth and then the way that he's been coming back. So if you like what you've seen, if 5 months is a big enough sample size for you, you should probably bet Jordan Spieth as technically he's the underdog, but he's minus 110, but Bryson's a little bit longer than that. So Spieth would be the bet if you like that side of it. One and done. Let's start with the Run Good one and done update. I'm trying to make my way back into the top 20. I'm currently 20th. I had Sam Burns last week. I think there was 8 or 9 of us that had Sam Burns. That was the most that anybody got. But Nash the Flash still out in front, 12.1 million. Castor, Joshua, Graybo, Chappie Chaps, and Jay Key rounding out the top 5. Ugri and a storm of Shanks, the only golfers above 10 million. And then Riggs at 9,997,000. So hopefully, Riggs, you can get into the $10 million club this week. And hopefully I can too. I'm 1.1 away. But when we're looking at options for this week in the one and done, it's obviously a massive prize pool. I believe it is 1.9 million to the winner. Let me confirm that real quick. Yeah, 1.98 million. So basically 2 million up top. And this is a lot of strategy this week. We are in most cases in the second half of your one and done. We've gone through a couple of major championships. Well, I guess depending on when you've started. So you got to consider who's left. If you have a way to look up how many of your peers have used certain golfers, I think that makes a lot of your decisions for you. So, for example, in the Run Good one and done, you look at some of the big names at the top. Jon Rahm, who is has the second shortest odds to win this golf tournament, has been used by 275 out of 363 owners. What's that, like 75%? So guys who might want to use Jon Rahm this week can't even. So if you are trying to make up ground and you want access to a stud, Rahm might be your guy. I understand the concerns around the putter. That's just since he made the switch to Callaway. If he can figure that out, the rest of the game is absolutely sublime. After that, I'm just kind of going through the big names here. Rahm has been used 275 times. Let's see. Dustin Johnson has been used 200 times. Pretty big gap there. Jordan Spieth, 204. Bryson, 201. A lot of guys in that same range. Rory has been used a bit less. Rory's down here at 174. So what I imagine kind of happening here is I think that Rory is going to be the popular play. I think Rory and Spieth are going to eat up a lot of the picks at the top. And I think that's warranted. I think if you are front running and you have access to these guys, it's Rory time. It is Spieth time. Roll them out. No worries. If you're looking to make up ground and you have Jon Rahm available to you, that might be a really interesting way to do it. If you have Bryson DeChambeau available to you, I imagine that most people are going to save Bryson for Torrey Pines. I have concern, or even save Jon Rahm Jon Rahm might be, if you are trying to make up ground, Jon Rahm might be the guy. People are either saving him for Torrey or they've already used him. There's not going to be a lot of super positive sentiment about him. He's rarely going to kill you. He's got like 8 top 10s in 13 events, something crazy like that. Maybe it's more. Maybe it's 9 out of 13. He might be the guy. Bryson, I think, would be a bit riskier just because of he is inherently way more risky. And I do think saving him for something like Torrey is much more valuable. Other popular picks this week, I assume, will be Hovland. If you wanted to pivot off Hovland, go back to our 2020 champion, Colin Morikawa, who is trending in the right direction. If you are looking for someone further down the board, you need kind of a real contrarian pick. I don't mind Cam Smith. He kind of has a complete all-around game. He's been contending quite a bit. You could go with some of the ball strikers, Corey Connors or Paul Casey. I mean, there's really, of course, a lot of options in this deep field. I think in some of the one and dones I'm in that high roller $1,000 one and done. I think I have Rory available, so I'll probably roll Rory out and go from there. But you got to go take your crack at $2 million, and if you can get it, certainly going to help you in a big way. Play your position. It's the time of year where we are playing our position. All right, there you go. The betting and one and done preview for this week's PGA Championship. It's going to be an absolute banger down there at Kiawah Island. Cannot wait. Tweet me at RickRunGood or leave a comment below. Best of luck this week, and I'll talk to you guys soon.